Greetings, family. Welcome to another episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Married Woman. In this episode, we're going to talk about infidelity or cheating. We're going to talk about what that means. And then, last of all, how do you move forward from that? Okay? So grab a drink, take a snack or something, and just let's get into it. So if you watched my previous episode, which talked about the baggage that I bring into my marriage and the fact that we all bring baggage into our marriage, I talked about my biological father and watching him go through several relationships, one wife after another, and the fact that with each wife, he had a side chick. Okay, so I was introduced to infidelity very, very early on when I was very, very young. There are a couple of kinds of infidelity. There is the emotional infidelity, and then there is the physical infidelity. Emotional is basically, it's like you're attracted to somebody else, very strong attraction where you're ignoring your spouse. It is almost palpable. You can almost see it when another spouse is emotionally, cheating with somebody else. You will see some text sometimes, some, phone calls in the middle of the night, or very private, hiding, phone calls, when the call comes in, suddenly they have to go somewhere else. They can't talk in front of you. Then comes the physical cheating, where it's actually going to sleep with the other person, as in sexual intercourse, having physically, meeting discreetly, and things like that. So those are the two kinds of cheating or infidelity that I am aware of. If you know any other kinds, please let me know, educate me, please. So from what I have seen, being married for almost 25 years and watching marriages all around me, I can tell you I have not seen one marriage yet that hasn't gone through some form of infidelity. I've seen the physical and I've seen the emotional. So does that mean every marriage has infidelity at some point? I wouldn't make that absolute. I wouldn't say yes to that. Hopefully there are some out there that haven't had to go through this situation, but before I got married, I expected it. I have to be honest with you, because that is all that I knew. That is all I had seen. So I expected it to happen at some point. Being aware of that and going into the marriage, I had to ask myself, what is a deal breaker if and when that happens? And that would be a whole other conversation, a whole other video, when it comes to what are the deal breakers in your marriage. Okay, and that has to be talked about. You have to discuss those things before you get married so that you both understand and there are no surprises there. Of course, naturally, some things will happen that you didn't expect. However, you have to talk about deal breakers. So let's put that aside. That's another episode. So now that we've talked about the two kinds of infidelity or cheating that there are, why does it happen? I would venture to say most of the time it is because there's some unsatisfactory situation in the relationship. Somebody is either not emotionally satisfied or physically satisfied. Usually they feel a lack in that respect, and it is not mutually exclusive. It is not necessarily that it's both, and it's not necessarily that it's only one or only the other. So you have to be very cognizant about yourself and putting yourselves or not putting yourselves in situations which could make you vulnerable in a certain way. I have seen people who think they're very, very strong. I'm never going to do that. And they use the absolute, I'm never going to do that. And then you find yourself in that situation and you realize you're a little bit of a hypocrite. Or you were just not anticipating that you would feel vulnerable in that situation. Let me tell you, infidelity will happen in 90% of marriages. They either have or will. Okay. So you have to have that conversation. What will happen? What is a deal breaker? So knowing that there is a lack, whether it's a physical or emotional, then you have to deal with how do you resolve it. So let's take it one at a time. If the infidelity is a result of emotional lack, where the perpetrator or the person who succumbed to that is not feeling that their emotions are being addressed, or that they can't express themselves emotionally, and so they do it in some other way. And again, the emotional infidelity doesn't have to be with another person. It can be, finding a venue or a channel or an outlet like pornography. And if you are the kind of person that can't vocalize how you feel, you can't let your partner know what you're feeling, or how they have made you feel, or how they said something and it shifted, your feeling in some way or another. It is a character of a person, who is not able to vocalize how they feel. I have to be honest with you, my husband's like that. He doesn't vocalize. He doesn't say, I feel, I don't even know, I feel sad, or I feel frustrated, or I am annoyed. So from my perspective, what I do then is I read the body language. It's been almost 25 years. I know, there are certain attitudes that I read that I already know. This is how he's feeling, and this is how it's coming out. That is how he's manifesting what is within him. And so I read that, and then I, act accordingly to try to balance the situation, So when you're newlyweds, though, that is something that hasn't, you may not have learned yet, depending on how long you were together before you got married, right? What the person is saying or what they're feeling is a symptom of a root cause. So you want to get down to the root cause, not the symptom. It's like doctors. You go to a doctor and they're, well, how are you feeling? And how does that make you feel? Listen, if you remove the root cause, all the symptoms will go away. Just fix it. Sorry, I have a thing with doctors. I can't. Anyway, so with that being said, that is one of the things that you have to address for the emotional. To me, that is one of the most difficult to deal with when somebody feels emotionally unsatisfied in a marriage. It can be one of the most difficult. Don't be afraid to say to your partner, to your spouse, you seem, like blah, 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 blah. Is that how you're feeling? Or do you want to write it? Some people feel good when they write it out. They just, spew it all out when they write it. Saying it is difficult. If that's the way that they can communicate with you, that's okay. There are people like me where I want you to tell me to my face, just say it. I'm not going to kill you. Look at me. I'm a shrimp. 5'2". Look at me. I can't do anything to you. I prefer you to say it because I hear the emotion in your voice when you're talking, and that helps me to truly understand where you're coming from. But if you're that kind where you have to write it or you have to express it in a different way, that's fine. Find the way to communicate that. Now, the physical cheating. Usually somebody is not satisfied sexually. It's very simple. Now, there's a certain level of compatibility here where inevitably one of you is going to be more physically needy than the other. When you're married, one of you is going to be more sexual than the other partner. You have to figure out how to deal with that. There's a whole other episode I'm going to do about, physical intimacy and, emotional intimacy. That's a whole other topic. However, for this specific episode, what I want to say is trust and believe. If you don't satisfy your spouse sexually, physically, it's almost like you're condoning infidelity. And I hate to say it because it sounds like a taboo, but it's almost as if. So you're going to have to figure it out. You're married, you're in this together, you're going to have to figure it out. And there are ways that you can satisfy each other that is not necessarily you being all the way engaged. There, you can get toys, you can, I'm just saying, you can pleasure somebody else with other ways. We'll talk about that in another episode. Make sure there are no children there. Okay, I'll let you know before you start watching it. Okay. But the physical infidelity situation is you need to get physical with your spouse, period. With that being said, there are some people that seem insatiable. And that may be an illness, and there's nothing to be shy about when it comes to that. There are the nymphomaniacs, or whatever they call them, the nymphs, it happens. So you may need therapy for that. With all of these situations, if you need therapy, seek therapy. There's nothing wrong with that. To me, that speaks volumes when you seek help, because it means you care about your marriage. Your marriage is a priority and you want to make it work. Point blank. So make sure that if there's any one of these things that seem to be consistently coming up, emotional infidelity or physical infidelity, that you're looking for a solution for it actively and talking about it or communicating about it. However, both spouses can talk about it, okay? Okay. How do you move forward from there? If you choose to stay together and try to resolve it or try to address it, how do you do that? There are several ways. Definitely you want to make sure you engage in counseling, because there's the perpetrator who is usually feeling very bad that they've made their spouse feel less than. So there's a certain kind of therapy for that. And there's also therapy for the person who has been wounded because their partner has cheated. So you all have to be in some kind of therapy or counseling or something to help you move forward. There are books available to read. There are lots of resources on the internet, but you have to address it. Now, one thing I will say to you, once you start to address it, everybody heals at a different rate. Some people heal faster and some people don't. For me, I need closure. I don't know about you, but I need closure. And my closure involves you telling me, first of all, why did it happen? Not that I did anything wrong per se, but what impression did you get that made you feel a certain kind of way that made that temptation irresistible to you for you to cheat? I need to know that. That's me. Number two, I need to know what you're doing to prevent this from happening again. I need that transparency. So whether you write it, whether you say it, but we have to memorialize it, because we have to both be accountable to each other, okay? So that's number two. And then number three, I need you to show me how sorry you are, truly, truly, truly sorry, where there's a change or a shift in how you deal with me that helps me feel that level of comfort, that you truly are sorry and you have moved away from that character situation and it won't happen again. Okay. So there are different ways that you can do it. You can write, I will do this, I will not do this, I'll do this. One of the things that happens, social media accounts. If you truly are not hiding anything, your spouse should have access to all your accounts, your phone, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Everything, email addresses, everything. That is the privacy that you lose for being a cheater. I'm just saying. So for some spouses, that's a deal breaker. No, you can't. I don't want you to see everything, because I'm an individual. I'm not a child. I don't need you to be monitoring. No. Listen, the minute you stepped out of the marriage, you lost that privilege. It's like going to jail. You lose the right to vote. There has to be transparency. If you're leaving the house to go somewhere, you need to let your spouse know where you're going. What time do you plan to come back? If they call you while you're out, you need to drop everything and pick up the phone and answer their call, not when you're driving. However, that level of transparency has to be there so that your spouse feels again that they're your number one. You know what I mean? If they truly are. But if you go back to how you were before, your spouse will continue to feel suspicious. And that in itself can lead to a whole lot, because there'll be times when you come home and you haven't done anything wrong and your spouse is like, where did you go? Who are you with? What did you do? And why are you home 3 minutes late? Right? You're like, okay. So you have to think about all of those things. So that is the end of this episode. If you have any questions, let me know. Have you been through this before? And if you're still in that marriage, is it the same now? Is your marriage better for that? Because sometimes things will happen that actually make your marriage better than it used to be. Okay, so not every challenge that comes in your marriage is a terrible thing. Some of it will let you realize things you didn't know and will help you propel to the next level if you both are in it together and you both choose to do that. So thank you as usual for watching. Now remember, to have a good and successful marriage, a content marriage, you want to be respectful to yourself and your spouse. You want to be kind to yourself and to your spouse. Until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful day.